3033 Ad, the Flaming Tower. The man shouts that the strength of the fire-gray bird, which towers over him by several meters in height, is almost running out. So he orders his comrades to finish it off, which makes another man and a girl instantly grab their own weapons, instantly rushing at that one. The lady attacks from her wand with a huge blue ball, lightning from which immediately strikes the bird's body, while other comrades attack with swords. At some point, the feathered one falls dead on the building, and then on the ground, clearly unable to continue this grueling battle. When the heroes are back on Earth, the blonde one says that the guardian of the Flaming Tower is finally finished and now only remains. But the phrase is finished for him by two allies who are standing behind. Now it only remains for him to die. He, not understanding what they mean, immediately hurries to turn around to them. Only at the same second a dagger pierces his chest, while a smile plays on the lips of the girl and the man, and the handle of the weapon itself sticks out of his body. Blood immediately spits out of his mouth with a cough, and he himself stands in a daze, not understanding why. They fought shoulder to shoulder for so many years, and here, the blue-haired woman only smiles, saying that one monk carries water for himself, 2 monks carry water, helping each other, and 3 have no one to carry it. And she also doubts that Xiao Ming is unaware of this truth. The man grins, saying that his strength is too great, and once they get rid of it, then nothing will threaten them. Both hands reach out to Tom before pushing him in the chest, forcing him to fall on his 5th point directly to the floor of the dead body of the bird. He only manages to mutter a curse, which makes the couple realize that he is still alive, and they must erase his body and soul, which immediately helps to raise their weapons to combat readiness. But as soon as they swing, the guardian of the tower immediately raises his head, starting to scream and light up with a bright fiery flame that envelops the hero. Is the fire-feathered bird still alive? The traders immediately take refuge from the raging flames, immediately going to jump back. Because it's bad, because apparently she wants to self-destruct. At the same moment, there is a big explosion with a high column of flame, while Xiao Ming shouts to Lai Wang and Long Huan that if the next life exists, then he will do everything to make them regret today. Before the fire finally reaches his body, showering with heat, and some kind of escapes from the man's chest. Then a red light, like a star, which immediately hurries to fall somewhere. The status window informs about the identification and processing of the trajectories of the character's fate, and then issues a system load while that same bright red star continues to fall from the sky. The events take place 300 years later, in the city of Kunhai, at the Martial Arts Academy. The teacher of the 3rd group, Liu Zhuxi, tells that 400 years ago 9 towers of darkness fell from the sky, and from that moment the great invasion of abnormal beasts began. Humanity was unable to resist them and were threatened with extinction. Fortunately for them, the rise of martial arts and the emergence of powerful warriors made it possible to overcome this crisis. Humanity is very lucky that he managed to live up to today. And today it's time for the students themselves to look at their deadly enemies, abnormal beasts. The girl pulls the fabric off the cage, and then one of the abnormal animals of the lowest, national level, a hyena, immediately appears in front of them. The students immediately begin to examine her, muttering to themselves, calling her an abomination, before the animal abruptly rushes to the bars of the cage, starting to growl insanely, which makes the teenagers immediately jump back while Liu Zhu decides to continue. In the initial manual about abnormal animals, they should have already received all the necessary knowledge regarding this particular species. And who's going to tell her about hyena's weaknesses now? One of the guys whispers to the others that there are already more than 1,000 species described in the book. Who will remember them all at all? To which the others agree before they fall silent and look back in surprise as soon as some sound reaches their ears. Is someone snoring? Noticing that the students were distracted, the woman herself wants to find out what happened there, while the teenagers stare uncomprehendingly at the dark-haired guy who pressed his back against a tree and peacefully sniffs, seemingly not noticing anything around him at all. The teacher, noticing this, calls the sleeper by name, Xiao Ming, and then tightens her whip, shouting how he dares to sleep at all in her lesson. Are you really tired of living? But then suddenly someone else's scarlet eyes open wide, as if a teenager has just really woken up from a dream, before he immediately gets into a fighting stance, clenching his fists, about to show Lai Wang and Long Huan that they are complete freaks, and then also stops himself abruptly when he feels the intense stares of classmates and women, and then he asks out loud what kind of place it is. Wasn't he supposed to die after the self-destruction of the Firebird? These memories. Ning was reborn after 300 years. The guy begins to laugh, saying that he could not even think that heaven would give him another chance at life. Now that he's alive, his past comrades will pay for everything they've done. But apparently, he doesn't even realize that he's saying this to the whole neighborhood, because Liu Zhu immediately runs into him, putting his foot forward and asking what the hell is the reckoning. Boy, did you reread the novel? Xiao himself only manages to stare in surprise at how a red heel flies in his direction, which then digs right into his cheek, causing him to literally do a backflip and slam his face into the tree upside down. The same one continues to shout that apparently life is not nice to him at all since he decided to sleep in her lesson. The guy's body finally falls down with a thud, while the students immediately begin to whisper about what everyone knows about that. How sharp Liu Black stockings can be. So, this loser Xiao Ming just ran into a beating. Yes, it seems that he has finally given up, which is not surprising. With such a low vital force index, he will never become a warrior, so there is not much sense for him to understand abnormal beasts. On the lips of the rest of the teenagers, malicious taunts continue to flash. A scum like him should have been kicked out of the academy long ago. They don't understand at all how he still has the conscience to show up in class. Barely recovered, the brunette rises from the ground, stroking his bruised cheek and asking again about the lesson. But it seems that's how it is. Judging by the memories of the former owner, today is the day of the lesson on the study of abnormal animals, and he, in turn, is just a martial arts academy exercise. Previously, he was able to destroy the animals of the imperial level, and now he has to study the national, the lowest level. How is it all? And at the same moment, the girl Qin Ying, the head of the third group, raises her hand, who at the same moment calls out to the teacher. She immediately stands up for the guy who doesn't understand anything, saying that this student has to do part-time jobs after classes because of difficult family circumstances. For sure, the reason for his sleep was, but she is not allowed to finish, as Kui Kang immediately intervenes in the conversation, who asks why she stands up for this scum. Anyway, intermediate testing will begin in a month. If he fails it, he will be kicked out of the academy. Qin tries to object to him, but is immediately interrupted by Liu Rusi, who asks everyone to calm down and shut up, and then turns to Xiao Ming himself. As long as he is a student of the academy, which means her too, then let him tell her where the weaknesses of abnormal hyenas are located. And if he does not answer, he will rewrite the initial manual about abnormal animals 10 times. The other students immediately start laughing. Yes, he probably doesn't even have a clue which page contains information about abnormal hyenas, so how can he even name its weaknesses? Moreover, the thickness of the initial allowance is so great that it can kill a person. I think Xiao will finish rewriting it 10 times, then when the cancer on the mountain whistles. Yeah, you wouldn't envy him. Ying turns to the teacher again, asking if she doesn't think this is too much, because the guy. But she is not allowed to finish again, because the blonde asks with irritation, is she really going to teach her to do her job? The brown-haired woman does not even know what to answer, while Kui Kang drills the headman with a look, still not understanding why she is always trying to protect this loser. Maybe there is something between them. But Min himself does not seem surprised or humiliated. He smiles. Just the weak points of abnormal hyenas. Yes, the brunette has been well versed in them for a long time. In those days, when he just became a warrior, he cut out a whole flock of 80 hyenas in order to hone the art of wielding a blade. Therefore, he will point out their weak points even with his eyes closed. The others continue to mock him. This guy clearly knows how to show off. Yes, if he can name all the weak points of hyenas, then one of them will grab shit right here. And if he hesitates a little longer with the answer, then it will definitely come out sideways for him. The woman is surprised by such confidence on the part of her student before she agrees to listen to him. And then he approaches him, resting the handle of the whip on his chin, saying that if he answers incorrectly, then. But Xiao, immediately realizing what's what, immediately pulls away and shows 4 fingers, saying that as far as he knows, abnormal hyenas have 4 weak points. The woman frowns. Does this kid know about the 4th one? Meanwhile, the rest of the students immediately start laughing loudly, because everyone knows that this species has only 3 weak points. So where did the last one come from? One of them didn't even doubt that this scum didn't know anything. But what a smart guy this fool was building himself, just hilarious. The drooping headman calls out to him, saying that in the initial manual there are really only 3 weak points in abnormal hyenas. He asks again incredulously, awkwardly rubbing his neck before saying that there must be some mistake in their training materials. Huey Kang puts his finger forward, ordering the guy to stop playing God knows what. The book says in black and white that abnormal hyenas have only 3 weak points: the throat, the abdominal part, and the eyes. Just think, an ordinary trash who failed the last exam thinks that he can question the teaching materials. The other students immediately start chuckling. He calls out to the teacher again, saying that Xiao Ming had the audacity not only to sleep in class, but also to question the reliability of educational materials. And he himself, as a punishment, offers to ban him from attending the academy for a while. Let him reflect a little on his actions. But Liu is silent, while the brunette decides to intervene himself, grinning and saying that the woman herself is able to decide. And where does he stick his pig snout? Naturally, this hurts someone else's ego, which makes the guy immediately cry out that Xiao Ming. Only Liu's firm and strict order does not allow him to finish. Enough is enough. Huya's face immediately spreads into a malicious grin. He himself begins to ask if the brunette heard it. The teacher herself told him to close his mouth, but the woman instead turns to the arrogant student, shouting his name and saying that she ordered Kyan to close her mouth, while her aura literally says that the lady is clearly furious, ready to teach him a lesson with a whip at any moment. The stunned guy immediately realizes that he has crossed a certain line, because he immediately mumbles incoherently that he is silent. When Liu Zhuxi turns back to the brunette, her mood immediately returns to normal, and the experienced aura as if blown away by the wind. She recalls that he recently said that abnormal hyenas have 4 weak points. In that case, where is the latter located? Even the majority of officially recognized warriors are not aware of this vulnerable point, so how does the kid know about it? Xiao begins to say with a slight smile that everything is very simple, since the 4th place is located. But then the abnormal beast, which had been sitting quietly before, abruptly begins to growl loudly, and the purple nape of her neck stands on end at all, and the yellow eyes immediately light up brighter. The iron cage literally trembles from someone else's huge body, and the former hero himself warily notices that something is wrong with it. And then, as if by order, with one sharp movement, the animal's head pushes the bars apart, completely breaking, which is why the startled blonde immediately turns around first, not understanding what and why just happened. The hyena instantly breaks out of the cage, immediately heading towards the students, which makes them instantly run away, shouting that the abnormal beast managed to get out, calling the teacher for help and trying to hide from the mad animal gaze as quickly as possible. And the abnormal animal itself is heading towards Kui Kyan at great speed, wanting to tear him to pieces. Here we are. The guy, naturally, greatly frightened, immediately jerks to the side, shouting that he does not want to die, because he immediately grabs the shoulders of Qin Ying, who happened to be nearby in time, running behind her, substituting the unfortunate girl, who did not even have time to orient herself, for a snack. The beast, opening its mouth wide, rushes towards them in the air, flashing its sharp fangs and claws, while the upstart is almost shaking with fear, and the brown-haired woman herself can only stare into the open mouth of the monster. Terrified to death, Liu Zhuxi shouts out the name of her student, intending to hurry to her, because her life depends on it. And Ying herself thinks that everything is over when the toothy and slobbering mouth is getting closer to her face, intending to bite off her entire head. But then Xiao Ming breaks off from the spot, who in an instant picks up the girl in front of the abnormal hyena, taking her in his arms in a wedding style, which, of course, she could not have expected, because at first she does not understand what happened and only enthusiastically shouts someone else's name, while the guy himself puts 2 fingers forward, menacingly pronouncing die to the emerging mutt, and then presses them to the hump between the muzzle and eyes, while the hyena still kept its mouth open. But after this touch, the entire front part of the abnormal beast begins to crack, before the animal falls dead, and a puddle of blood flows out of her mouth. Qin has already managed to get to her feet by this time. However, she is still desperately and fearfully clinging to someone else's chest. Nin, with a slight smile, informs that the 4th vulnerable spot of abnormal hyenas is located between the eyes, while he puts his palm on the headman's waist, still holding, and the girl's cheeks are red with might and main. The guy asks if old age is okay, to which she shyly adjusts her hair and says that everything is fine with her before thanking the brunette, and she thinks with great admiration that for some reason at that moment she felt that she was completely safe. The abnormal hyena is one of the weakest animals of the national level. She shouldn't have the strength to destroy the iron cage. Standing in front of the corpse of the beast, he continues to reason. Something strange has clearly happened here. But then some small red fragment flies out of the animal's head, more like a star, which moves with confidence and falls into the hero's chest, while he can only look in surprise and clap his eyes. What the hell? But immediately a status window pops up, informing that the abnormal hyena has been destroyed, and 1 unit of life force has also been obtained. Zio can only stare at this blue window, not understanding at all what just happened. And what does this unit of life force mean? On the window, when clicked, his name is displayed in the carrier tab, and he now has 11 units of life force. So, killing abnormal beasts grants him an increase in this very power. The brunette clenches his fist, smiling contentedly. This system is made right for him. Alarmed students who were standing a few meters away from the hero immediately point to what happened, urging them to look before asking if the hyena is dead. Others shout that she was killed with 1 blow by Xiao Ming, who, along with the girl, was still standing in front of the beast's corpse. After that, Liu Zhu squats down next to the deceased animal, gently touching the top of the hyena's head with 2 fingers. With just 1 swipe of his finger, he smashed the abnormal hyena's skull into pieces. Even she is not the fact that she could achieve such accuracy and calculations of the impact force. The woman tenses up, feeling the hero of the day standing behind her, before noticing that, after all, this Xiao Ming is not as simple as it seems at first glance. Frightened students immediately call out to her, wondering if the hyena really died. Shaking with fear for her own life, the blonde gets up and responds positively, saying that they have nothing to fear since the abnormal beast is dead. She also appeals to the whole class to convey that the student who saved them recently said everything correctly. The 4th vulnerable spot of the abnormal hyena is really located between its eyes. However, this knowledge relates to the content of the higher level training course, and it has not yet been taught. The woman turns to face Min and gently puts her hand on his shoulder, saying that this time he showed himself well. She will report the incident so that he gets more academic points. The brunette thanks her with a smile, while the rest of the group immediately starts discussing what happened. None of them misheard. Did Liu Blackstockings not only compliment him, but also put on points? The sun suddenly rose in the west, or what? After that, the voice is given by the sofa warrior, who does not see anything in it at all. He was just lucky to find out about the hyena's 4th weak point from somewhere. If he had been in his place, he would have been able to, too. One of the guys also asks him not to talk nonsense, since even Kui Kang got scared and hid behind Qin Ying, and his strength doesn't even come close to an upstart. By the way, about him, if he is not mistaken, then he is constantly trying to get the attention of the headman. It looks like his case is hopeless now. The rest of the girls of the group with eyes full of hearts, looking at the brunette and say that you can't rely on such a cowardly guy like Kui at all. But Xiao Ming, Kang thinks that now he has specifically disgraced himself and needs to come up with a way to fix everything. Otherwise his image will come to an end in the eyes of the headman. The guy throws his hand up and asks who said he was scared. Actually, the guy was looking for a convenient position to attack and just didn't think that Xiao would get ahead of him. His family has managed to raise several of these creatures, so why would he be afraid? He put the shoe on someone else's dead body with a bang, continuing to say that even a scum whose vitality index is only 10, can do this, and his own is as much as 80 units. So, for him to kill such an animal is just a spit. Is he showing off? Well, no, after his recent facial expression, no one will believe him now. Everyone starts to laugh, covering their mouths with the palm of their hand, while the headman even closes his eyes in shame. Anyway, it's not a crime to curl up, so let him talk if you like. Huey immediately begins to be indignant. They say, how can these infections not believe him at all? Well, and if so, he will prove everything himself now. It's just an abnormal hyena, why would he be afraid? The guy pulls the dead beast by the scruff of the neck, forcing him to lift the upper part of the mouth, while he also grabs a huge fang, thrusting his head inside. The girls immediately mutter that this is some kind of abomination, and the headman herself still covers her face with her palm, not understanding what he is doing at all. The departed Liu returns again after a while, and finds this picture, which makes her start to get annoyed, calling the stupid student by name and ordering him to stop fooling around. But he doesn't listen either, continuing to tell everyone to watch. He will prove that the abnormal hyena does not frighten him at all. And do they really think that scum like Xiao Ming can be put on a par with him? The brunette himself only smiles, crossing his arms over his chest, before thinking, this kid was teasing him all the time. I think it's time to give him unforgettable memories. He stretches out one palm, between the fingers of which there is a small stone, which instantly goes flying and hits the predator's mouth, causing it to slam shut. biting someone else's head. Kang did not skimp on a loud scream, almost a squeal, before he starts screaming and hitting the beast in the face, begging someone to help him because the hyena did not die. He even yells at the teacher. The back of his pants is covered in urine. The rest, of course, are shocked, even silent for a while, as if they don't know how to react to this. Is he an idiot? And on the other hand, it seems to serve him right. After a while, he still gets out of the mouth of a huge hyena, all out of breath and in the remaining drool, saying that it was just a false alarm. The blonde, who towers over him, only fastidiously covers her mouth with her palm and informs that the incident is over. As for Kang himself, he should hurry up and clean himself up and change his pants at the same time. Immediately, the rest of the class begins to burst out laughing, not believing that this happened to such an upstart. Just think, in the history of the Martial Arts Academy, this is perhaps a major precedent. They all continue to laugh when the unhappy and humiliated boy runs away from them, covering his fifth point with his hands. Min himself hopes that the memories of what happened will not overshadow his life. After a while, the lessons finally end and the students all leave the academy building. Some people talk, offering friends to visit Heroes Square, where a new maid cafe has opened, but the recovered Kiwi thinks with tension that after the incident with the hyena, his image in Kin Ying's eyes turned to dust, which means he must immediately fix everything. That's why the guy is standing in front of the school exit, holding a bouquet of scarlet roses behind his back. And here she is, the girl of his dreams. The headman comes out, tucking a lock of her brown hair behind her ear, holding a bag in her hand, before Kang calls out to her, immediately taking out a bouquet. The girl stops and turns to him, asking if he wanted anything. He immediately worships her, holding out flowers and saying that he feels guilty for the incident, and asks her to accept his apology. And he had heard that a new pastry shop had opened on Heroes Square. So how about Kiwi treat a nice lady to make amends? The headman immediately feels awkward, raising his palms and trying to somehow get away from such a gift. Apologies are already enough for her, so there is simply no need to spend money on sweets. The arrogant teenager awkwardly rubs his neck, intending to somehow object, but Xiao Ming passes by his side, as if out of spite, and all the girl's attention switches to him. That's why she waves her hand to the guy with flowers and apologizes, saying that she has more things to do, so bye-bye. To which Kang does not really have time to react, only looking in surprise at the girl, who instantly moves away in the other direction. She runs up to Xiao Ming, who is calmly heading out of the academy, and with a blush on her cheeks thanks him for today. After all, he had saved her life. Also, the headman asks if he has free time, because the brown-haired woman has heard that a new pastry shop has opened on Heroes Square, and as a thank you, I would really like to treat him. Her face was literally glowing with joy, and her cheeks were flushed with blush. The guy turns his head to her and says that he still has things to do. But the headman herself continues to insist, asking when he will be free at all. Awkwardly patting his hair, as if afraid to refuse Kin, he says that maybe tomorrow. Then they will return to this conversation. Huey was standing to the side, who was watching this picture with irritation. It was because of Xiao Ming that his reputation came to an end. And now this scum still dared to target the girl he likes. Let the brunette be sure that he certainly won't get away with it. He squeezes the bouquet so much that the flowers begin to crumble. Xiao after a while comes to the Heroes Square, where there are two huge statues and a lot of people are wandering. 300 years ago, Lai Wang and Long Quan led a squad of warriors and defeated a fire-feathered bird of the Imperial level, and also destroyed the Flaming Tower, one of the 9 Towers of Darkness. They sowed fear in the hearts of the abnormal beasts, and stopped their advance. It was only thanks to their feat that humanity managed to overcome the crisis that arose. Lai Wang and Long Quan are the heroes of humanity. It is their statues in all their glory that stand in the middle of the square. And if it weren't for them, people would have been waiting for extinction for a long time. It's just a pity that in recent years, the great Lai Wang and Long Quan have completely focused on improving without leaving the sacred capital. Now rarely anyone gets to see them in the flesh. Meanwhile, the real hero stood aside and listened to all these nonsense, clutching his bag. Vile traitors who have appropriated other people's merits have become heroes for all mankind. What an absurdity. He, Xiao Ming, swears on this very spot that one day the day will come when he will tear off their masks and reveal to the whole world the real faces of his former comrades. His eyes are blazing with hellish anger, and the guy himself only tightens his grip on the handle of his backpack. The brunette is heading away from this disgusting square, while Kang is watching him, who orders 2 buggies with hyenas on a leash to keep up with him. And they will start when the offender is in that alley. And as if by order, Min himself is heading there. Despite the existence of the system, the city is not a place where it is so easy to find and kill abnormal animals. At least, such thoughts were floating in his head as he walked, looking at his feet. But then someone's dark sneaker enters the review of his own shoe, and as soon as he looks up, the same buggies appear in front of him, who block the way. One of them calls him by name and says that he has heard that he thinks too much about himself. Holding two hyenas by the chains, he continues to say that he really got tired of living, since he was smart enough to go against young Mr. Kiang. Xiao just grunts in bewilderment and then asks who they are. But the surprises are not going to end there. Huey calls out to him from behind, flanked by people with bats. The upstart says that he, was going to eat sweets with Qin Ying. How, then, did it happen that he was here all alone? The brunette finally gives his voice, not moving at all from his seat, but simply turning his head to face other people's eyes. Did Kiang really want to run into trouble? Two abnormal hyenas plus a few rogues who are not even warriors. 1 minute will be more than enough. The purple-haired man points at him with his finger, angrily shouting that if it wasn't for him, today he would never have disgraced himself. That is why the teenager will not calm down until he teaches him a lesson. Xiao's scarlet eyes only start to sparkle more, and the aura around him only gets darker and darker. He asks again with a grin, is Kui going to teach him a lesson? And a pompous turkey thinks that a bunch of crooks will help him in this. Immediately, the man who had previously held the chains with hyenas begins to be indignant, shouting that this garbage with 10 units of vital force has completely confused the coast. The rest, as if hearing the order, immediately run to him, bringing the bits for subsequent strikes. From their mouths only cries can be heard, "Come on. Let this kid know what happens to those who get involved with the hyena gang. You ran into it yourself, kid. The claims are not against us. Get ready to gain an epiphany. We'll break all his bones and much more," while the brunette himself just continues to stand still, and men with weapons are running at him from all sides. And Kiang himself, who is standing aside, laughs maliciously. He's cool, isn't he? So let him show what he can do. These caustic phrases act on the teenager like a signal, which makes him instantly turn his head towards the source of the sound, and his irises only get more bloodshot. And at the same second, the guy hits everyone with one touch, like dummies, forcing every man to just fall down and cough up blood. Then a punch in the gut, then in the face, then in the groin. Literally everyone who was somehow hurt by the boy's blow was just lying on the ground now, one even with his trousers down. And Xiao himself again just stood calmly in place, holding his backpack in the palm of his hand. Both the man and Kui at that moment looked not that surprised, but absolutely shocked. Min grins, seems to have got the right reaction, and then pulls off his tie, telling a classmate that such a non-entity like him does not shine against the brunette himself. The upstart, who was caught off guard, immediately shouts that he rejoices early, because this is not the end at all, and then turns to the man, ordering him to quickly release the hyenas from the chain, and he will settle the consequences himself. Hesitantly agreeing, the bandit releases the chains from his hand, saying that he has already heard rumors that the boy managed to kill the hyena with his bare hands. Therefore, they should find out whether it's bullshit or not. Muzzles are immediately removed from the mouths of abnormal animals, and they themselves begin to growl thoughtlessly, immediately starting to move. Their eyes sparkle as brightly as their fangs as they run at full speed from their master to the still-standing Xiao. Huey immediately starts laughing, making a snide face, shouting that the worthless hyena that was in the lesson cannot be compared with these beasts. They went through a special training. If it has reached where his place is, then it's not too late to kneel down and beg for mercy. And if he decides to resist, then let him not blame the violet-haired one if he is torn apart. But Ming didn't even flinch, still standing in the same place and looking in the direction of the distraught hyenas approaching him, who wanted nothing but to devour him. But he grins himself, saying that no matter what his hyenas are, there is no difference for him. The teenager drops his backpack, before he moves himself towards possible death at the same second, it seems, not worrying about it at all, while the animals kept opening their mouths wider. And then in an instant he jumps up, stretching his arms on both sides and resting all the same 2 fingers in the hump between the eyes. And then he lands on his feet. Hyenas, on the other hand, drop dead at the same moment, while blood is gushing from their mouths. The skull of both was simply destroyed with just one light push. What the hell? One punch again. Huey looks in amazement at how his own classmate managed to lay down 2 huge creatures without any problems. The man himself is shocked that his favorite hyenas were just taken and destroyed. And it's obvious that the kid is not a warrior, so how did he manage to instantly finish off his most ferocious beasts? At the same second, a blue status window pops up, in which 2 more vital forces have been added to 11 units. Now he has as many as 13. That's great. Zio smiles softly, clenching his fist as two small red stars rush into his chest again. Startled and scared to death, Kiwi immediately rushes away from the scene of a recent crime. This kid is too strong, which is why we need to get out of here while he's still intact. But immediately Zio appears behind his back, who says that since the brat has no more tricks left, now it's his turn. This only makes the purple-haired one tremble more. Realizing that there is nothing else to do, he turns to face him and raises his palms in a gesture of surrender, begging the guy in front of him to stop, because maybe they could somehow come to an agreement. But instead, Min, without any hesitation, says to the opponent, hold on, before striking with a sharp movement with his toe shoes on the groin itself, which makes the young gentleman just fly off into the air with a wild squeal. The man who had been holding hyenas before seems even more frightened by this Kang flight, clutching his mouth with his palm. At the same moment, the hero turns to face him, saying that he heard them call themselves the Hyena Gang. Right now, he has too little strength to kill abnormal beasts outside the city, but he did not think that the solution to the problem would come to him by itself. Anyway, so there are a lot of abnormal hyenas in their gang's possession, right? He answers uncertainly that this is true, before immediately trying to regain a serious expression on his face, stretching out his palms and shouting that their gang is the strongest in the western part of the city, and they have several hundred similar animals. Therefore, if he only dares to touch him, then... But the guy does not let him finish, who without any hesitation hits him on the face, saying that the bandit talks too much, which is why he falls to the ground after all, grabbing his sore cheek. Towering over him is Zio, who orders to take him to their gang, and if he goes off, the brunette grabs the man by his bushy hair, saying that he will be skinned alive. Frightened for his life, the bandit immediately gives up, raising his palms in a gesture of surrender, agreeing in a nervous and trembling voice that he will take him there. After a while, the two of them walk through the streets of the Western District, while people squint at them from the side. The man leads him to a building that looks like an abandoned house or even a hangar. Here Banga hyenas and cooks up his affairs. With a grin, the guy informs that he can be free, to which the latter only asks in fright what he is up to. The aura around the hero immediately transforms, and the grin only grows. He wants to have a few words with his boss, and at the same time offer their services for the extermination of abnormal hyenas. Already inside, these same animals collide with each other, trying to bite the other by the scruff of the neck. They are fenced with a special fence, behind which people shout that they have put money on one, and she must tear the other's throat. Let them gnaw it at all. Actually, a kind of underground fights, which are watched not only by those who paid, but also by those who are higher in this food chain. The man with the cigar takes a drag before asking about the third brother who left, taking two hyenas with him. So where did he go? The servant standing behind bows before replying that the young master of the Kui family wanted to teach a lesson to a boy, some loser from the martial arts academy named Zio Ming. The third brother took his men to back him up. A man with an eye patch thoughtfully mutters that taking two hyenas with him just to deal with one brat is somehow thoughtless. The actions of the third brother are becoming increasingly unacceptable. But then someone's shoe just completely breaks through the wooden doors, which is why people sitting on benches immediately turn around at a new sound, not understanding what kind of business it is, while clouds of smoke and dust are rising around the doors with might and main, drawing only a dark silhouette. Even the man himself with the bandage rises from his seat, peering in that direction, also not understanding what is happening. Meanwhile, the smoke gradually dissipates, and the unknown man heads inside with menacing steps before stopping and throwing his bag over his shoulder again. His name is Zio Ming, and where can he find the boss of the Hyena Gang? The one-eyed man only frowns, asking someone else's name again. For some reason, it seems painfully familiar to him. The person who recently told him what the third brother was doing immediately calls out to the boss, saying that this is the same kid to whom the young gentleman went to teach a lesson. The purple-haired man just puffs on his cigar, examining the boy from above. So it's him. That is why the gang leader calls out to him, asking why he is alone, and where is the person who dragged him here. But Min only smiles gently, immediately realizing that this, apparently, is the boss. But the man seems to have misunderstood something. No one brought him. He came here of his own free will. The boss, not fully understanding what the boy means, just asks again. Even if it was of his own free will, then why did he come here? And everything is quite simple. Zio is here to rid them of the hidden threat. If he remembers correctly, then animal fighting in the territory is prohibited. And the guy gets rid of their hyenas, thereby helping to avoid the threat of arrest. By this time, in complete silence, which was only interrupted by someone else's voice, One Eye and his subordinate went down the stairs to the crowd, who also listen to the boy, but then they begin to grin. The rest, and who would dare to meddle in the territory of the hyena gang at all? Anyway, it looks like Xiao came here just to get a lioli. Then the crowd starts laughing, all continuing to discuss the new guest. For example, where did this geek get so much courage at all? Did everyone hear that he declared that he would kill all their hyenas? Yes, it's just the nonsense of a gray mare. Then the one-eyed man himself gives a voice, calling the newcomer an imbecile idiot, before ordering him to break his legs and throw him out of here, out of harm's way, while he himself, apparently, does not want to deal with it. Subordinates immediately grab the bits, shouting that Tom, apparently, is just tired of living, since he has the sense to show off on their territory. This cute youngster wandered into the wrong place. The men immediately take off from their seats, waving their weapons, while the student of the martial arts academy continues to stand still, rooted to the spot. They pounce on him, which is why columns of dust instantly form at the scene of the fight, which rises into the air, while the bandits continue to swing their bats. One Eye just turns his back on them and sighs. And where did this idiot come from anyway? So much time has gone nowhere because of him. But literally at the same second, someone screams before the employees simply fly off into the air, tumbling and falling to the ground. The man, hearing this, immediately stops, turning to the guy and blinking in surprise, not understanding at all how such a seemingly clumsy and frail boy managed to scatter all the bandits. Xiao just grins, thrusting his fists forward. But he came here to solve their problems. Well, if they couldn't talk in a good way, then they'll have to do it in a bad way. The remaining gang, which stands aside, is almost trembling with fear. They didn't imagine it. This kid knocked over so many people with one attack. How is this even possible? Judging by his uniform, he's just a student. But then the cigar hits the floor sharply, and then it is extinguished with the toe of a dark shoe. This is literally a signal that Min, without knowing it, crossed some line. The embittered one-eyed man looks at him with a green iris that sparkles, and the aura around him becomes no less murderous. Putting the palms together, rings immediately begin to shine on the fingers, and not on the neck, someone's fang. He did not think that the boy was not only talking a lot. Since Xiao wants to kill their hyenas so badly, well, he will fulfill his wish. Grinning and spreading his arms to the sides, he orders to open the cages and release the hyenas. The iron bars open with a clang in an instant, and two abnormal animals come out from there, who slowly walk towards the teenager, and the people who are nearby immediately decide to move away. After a while, the crowd begins to cheerfully yell. One-eyed Cade decided to get down to business seriously. Come on, eat it. He's screwed. And the hyenas, no longer afraid of anything and no one, increase their speed, instantly approaching the mine and opening their mouths with the intention of tearing the unfortunate boy to pieces, while he still stands still and only mutters that it would be so right away. That's just it. His eye turns a brighter scarlet color again, and in the same second he pushes off the ground with his foot, jumping into the air, and shouting that he did not come here for the sake of two insignificant hyenas. And at the same second, one of the animals gets a blow to the throat, which causes it to fly away, and a scarlet liquid falls out of its mouth. And the second one gets a blow on the back of the neck, which causes the beast to collide with the floor with its forehead. The crowd exclaims in surprise, not believing that he laid the hyenas literally with one blow. This kid can't be a real warrior, right? From the dead bodies of abnormal animals, those very red rays immediately rush, which instantly dig into the chest of a student of the martial arts academy. People are afraid that after this, Cade will never let this kid go. The man is horrified to ask the boss what to do, while the aura of the latter becomes darker and more aggressive, and he himself clenches his jaws with might and main before yelling at the ward. He also asks, we need to open the cages and release all the hyenas. He can't wait to see how many this kid can kill. The rest of the workers, terrified of such a boss, completely furious and angry, rush to immediately carry out the new order. The iron doors of a huge cage clang up, and from there immediately a whole horde of hyenas sticks out, which head towards the main character with moderate steps, while he continues to stand in one place. But then a grin spreads across his face. Xiao rubs his neck before saying that now it has become at least a little interesting. Literally a minute later, he shouts to the whole arena, dog beating technique, while he fights off abnormal animals with a bat. One has to be hit in the jaw, then in the paw, the other even on the top of the head and between the eyes, the third gets in the belly. Min literally beats them up, but hyenas are not going to give up so easily. After 10 minutes, the guy shouts death, while every animal that wants to attack him from above gets hit in the belly with the same bat, and they themselves fall dead or even fly away a few meters in different directions. And already half an hour later, Min himself chases them, this time asking where they are running, and then orders them to stand at all. But the hyenas, like beaten dogs, immediately turn their tails and try to get away from the abnormal. At the same time, the director himself is standing with his mouth agape, who did not even think that such a thing was possible. No, he doesn't believe it. Immediately, a blue status window pops up, in which the number 99 now flaunts around the vital forces, and 86 in parentheses. It turns out that he has already managed to defeat so many hyenas. From the dead bodies to his own, bright red ribbons immediately begin to weave, or those stars that disappear as soon as they dig into his chest. And the hero himself notices to himself that the feeling of increasing vitality is simply magnificent. The rest of the crowd of beaten bandits is no less surprised than their boss, because they immediately begin to whisper, "Did the boy alone kill so many hyenas?" Someone repeats that this is too unrealistic. And is the guy in front of them really just an ordinary student? Today, one-eyed Cade ran into a steel plate. Zio, who had previously put his foot on the top of the dead abnormal beast, looks towards the boss and adjusts his jacket before asking, "Is this really all they have?" What a pity, because he only had time to warm up. Min beckons the stunned man with 2 fingers, asking him to release a couple more hyenas. The boss seems to be offended by this, which makes his face turn into one continuous grimace of anger, and the one-eyed man himself shouts out so that he does not rejoice ahead of time. He doesn't even need hyenas to lower it. Cade roars from the emotions overflowing him and puts his hand forward, pointing at the boy with his finger and ordering him to grab him in a menacing tone. But nothing happens. Tense silence instantly fills the space while the man and the guy continue to stand opposite each other. Which one? The boss immediately turns his head, not understanding where everyone disappeared in an instant. But the subordinates run to the exit, shouting, "Fuck it all, this guy is not a person at all, none of us can even defeat one hyena, and you're asking to deal with him. This is suicide, or if you want, deal with it yourself." The man only has time to shout to those running away in the back, who have already disappeared behind the gate, that they are complete bastards, because they literally ate from his hands every day, and now they dared to betray him. Yes, he is there, but immediately a brunette appears behind his back with his arms crossed on his chest and a very peculiar aura. Zio advises him to think about his own well-being now, which makes the gang boss shudder and in a moment turns to him, asking what he is up to. With a grin, Min replies that it's absolutely nothing. He just wants to know where Cade was able to get these hyenas, and if there are other abnormal animals. If One Eye somehow managed to get them, then, of course, he can get other types of animals. If the brunette can get to his supply channel, he will get a rapid growth rate of his strength. That's just the interlocutor, apparently, does not want to go towards him at all, shouting that he did not even dream about it. We are talking about the foundation by which hyena gangs exist. And even if the boy decides to kill him, he still won't say anything. On the face of a student of the Academy of Martial Arts, a grin only blossoms wider, and he himself crunches his fingers. His eyes only get more crimson, and the aura around him becomes simply murderous. Really. And then a couple of clear and sharp blows are applied, accompanied by bright flashes. Completely beaten, Cade is already sitting on his knees, clutching his bruised cheek, before awkwardly announcing that he is buying abnormal hyenas at the Eclipse Arena, which is located in the southern part of the city. As far as he knows, they have other, stronger, abnormal beasts. For them, abnormal hyenas are not significant at all, which is why they sell them to him on the cheap. The Eclipse Arena. In his previous life, Zio often honed his skills there. If he remembers correctly, to this day no one has broken his record of a series of victories in the Eclipse Arena. Then, still hovering over the kneeling old man, asks when it opens and who controls it. Removing his palm from his bruised cheek, One-Eyed replies that there will be one discovery at the end of this week. As for the manager, he himself does not know. He only knows that this someone is a very big shot. The guy grins, obviously pleased with the answer, and then leans a little lower to pat the beaten Cade on the shoulder a couple of times, saying that in this case, at the end of the week he will take him there. He jumps out of his seat in surprise, looking at the back of the student of the Martial Arts Academy. And to take the boy to the arena. Zio turns his head, asks if he is against the fact that the man, who used to be all big and strong, has become a sharp little mumble. One Eye just groans and informs that there is a membership system in the Eclipse Arena, and even to him. But at the same moment he is interrupted by the voice of a student who, with a gloomy face, gives out that he has internal injuries in the solar plexus area, the situation with which has been aggravated for about 10 years, and he believes that their cause was the breath of the glacier hawk. The stricken man is only able to ask in a trembling voice how the boy knows this information, to which the latter replies that he not only knows, but can also heal his injuries. This Cade is the local king of Kunhai. It would be much easier if he handled things on behalf of Min. At least, that's what he thinks himself. That is why he asks to prepare 3 grams of wood seed ash, 0.5 grams of sand crystals, 6 grams of purple mushroom spore liquid, and also find him a clean room. The still dazed boss of the hyena gang suddenly comes to his senses and immediately frowns, ordering the interlocutor to wait. All he listed were the extraordinarily expensive materials used by pharmacists. Really a boy. But then his speech is interrupted by his own thoughts. Pharmacists are much rarer than warriors. Each of them is an honored guest for any influential organization. Pharmacists are capable of producing damn strong medicines and elixirs. Even if you are an ordinary person, taking these very elixirs will endow him with a power comparable to that possessed by the warriors themselves. But if this kid is a pharmacist, then he should have been a member of the corresponding guild for a long time. How can he still be a student? But then his thoughts are interrupted, moreover, by the same boy. Zio turned his back to him again and importantly raised one finger up, informing him that Cade only had a minute to think. And if he doesn't decide, catching hold of his pathetic skin, he immediately agrees, saying that he will prepare everything before he ran to the stairs like a wild boar, and the student of the martial arts academy remained standing in place. If this guy is really a pharmacist, the one-eyed one thinks, continuing to run and grin wildly, then he's had a bad luck. With his patronage, he will be able to rise even higher in Kunhai. After a while, the two of them are already opposite each other in some room, while there is a wooden table between them. There are 3 cones of different contents on it, one with some yellow sand, another with bluish, from which some gas comes, and the third with a purple liquid at all. Cade smiles, folding his palms and informing me that all the materials are here. So, when? But the guy interrupts him, chuckling and saying that everything is clear, while he himself takes a bottle of liquid, examining that one. Having reached the peak of martial arts in his previous life, he devoted some time to the practice of creating elixirs. It remains to be hoped that he has not lost the skill yet. The brunette hits the table with his palm, shouting launch, which causes the lids to immediately fly out of the necks, and all the contents rise into the air, before after a while they begin to curl into a spiral, rising higher and higher, and a bright blue sphere forms around them, around which all sorts of formulas begin to appear more and more, or else the symbols, and Zio keeps talking. The formula of a chain molecular reaction. Dispersal. The blue sphere is getting bigger and bigger, growing every second in front of the student, while he shouts, reaction formula, and the crazed boss of the hyena gang is watching all this. Only pharmacists are able to know something like that. Immediately, a huge smile appears on his face, and his only eye is still looking at what is happening with some admiration. So he really got acquainted with the pharmacist. Now as it rises, Min shouts out with a smile, freezing. While in his hand, the blue sphere is transformed into a liquid of the same color, which still levitates. Ready. Cade is surprised to see the levitating liquid in someone else's palm when the blue cloud of the former sphere disappears altogether. He starts talking in amazement, even mistakenly calling the boy a master, but immediately rushes to correct himself. So, this medicine will really help him heal his internal injuries. He answers that this is so, and then straightens up, stretching his arms and pulling himself up in a peculiar way, flexing his muscles, while the liquid in the bright blue light continues to be in the air, reflecting on the walls of the room with a rainbow. And yet, he hadn't done it for a long time. Well, it will be considered that the creation of a level 3 restoring fluid served him as practice. Cade is only more surprised. 3rd grade. The market value of a class 3 medicine is at least 1,000 gold, and Zio created it without straining at all. But then someone else's thoughts are interrupted by a student of the Academy of Martial Arts, ordering his interlocutor to open his mouth while he directed 2 fingers in his direction, which caused the liquid, which had been levitating calmly in the air, to jerk sharply in the indicated direction. One-Eyed barely manages to agree with this, opening his mouth slightly, while the blue blob, like an arrow, instantly goes into the open mouth. And as soon as she gets inside, the boss of the hyena gang awkwardly swallows her while cold sweat rolls down his forehead from exertion. As soon as the sip was taken, and the liquid got inside, the man's body was immediately enveloped by some kind of blue aura that swirled like smoke, which made him look at his hands in surprise. But literally in a second everything dissipates, and he himself immediately lights up with real admiration. Oh my god. The one-eyed man touches his chest in disbelief, mumbling in amazement that his injuries have been removed by hand, while the guy looks at it with a smile. He literally gets down on one knee at the same moment, putting his palms together and telling the virtuous master that he, Cade, is now in his debt. And from now on he will do whatever Min says. Even if he asks to jump into the sea of flames, He won't even raise an eyebrow. Zio only awkwardly scratches his cheek, saying that they will wait with the sea of flame for now, before he throws his briefcase over his shoulder again and turns his back to him, reminding him that he did not forget to take him to the Eclipse Arena at the end of the week. The man, noticing his departure, says that he will do so without any problems, before rushing after him, simultaneously asking where the master is going now, and then he offers to conduct it at all. After that, life flows with might and main in some market or street. Someone shouts about double beef with fervor and with heat, tasty and cheap. Others about vodka on dried organs of the thunder horn. And anyone who drinks will immediately understand. Still others are about medicinal sugar cane, large, long and sweet. One girl with burning eyes even offers burning bamboo rat kebabs and only 3 yuan for one, and 10 for 3. The baby is hailed by a man with a fan, asking you where her brother is, because her studies have long ended. She does not know at all and assumes that he has been having a blockage with his studies lately, handing the kebab to the buyer. But then the one who received the food intervenes in the conversation. The man grins. What the hell is the blockage? Even he had heard that the vitality index of this kid, Zio Ming, is only 10 units. He didn't have a chance to become a warrior at all. And Zio Yu works here day after day to pay for his studies at the Martial Arts Academy. It's just a waste of money. It would have been better if they had forced my brother to help a long time ago, and I would have saved time and effort. The brunette angrily snatches the barbecue from him, immediately exclaiming why he is talking so much nonsense. That's why she won't even sell him the goods in principle. The man, realizing his mistake, immediately laughs awkwardly and raises his palms in a gesture of surrender, saying that he is only joking and there is no need to be so nervous. But then a potential buyer is immediately grabbed by the cheek, pushing aside while another man with a high hairstyle is shouting at him to get out. The girl immediately tenses up, shooting a glance at the newcomer and frowning. 2 big guys are standing on his sides, and he himself lifts his black glasses and with a smile informs Baby Yu that it's time for monthly payments for her stall. The brunette only looks at the newly appeared guest in surprise. What, again? Hasn't she already paid this month? The crowd, which had been standing nearby before, immediately began to run away or go far away. The man, meanwhile, continues to stand on his own. Monthly payments for retail outlets are charged 3 times, and as Yu sees, she used to have special conditions, because there was hope that her older brother would become a warrior. But, alas, he turned out to be worthless, so. The girl leans back in fright, seeing how he wipes his glasses and says that she does not have so much money with her now. Can they somehow wait for the payment? He puts his glasses back on with a nasty smile, while hypocrisy is coming through from him, and then says that it won't do at all. This year, the landowner has no opportunity to give someone indulgences. Zio immediately tenses up, straightening to attention, which makes the man assume that if she does not have money, he knows other ways, which confirms everything with the following actions. He bends down, sticking his nasty tongue out of his mouth and stretching his palm to the girl's shoulder, which made her so completely frozen with fear, and her eyes only widened. Immediately, a man with a fan jumps up from his perch, saying that if she doesn't have money, then he can borrow a little. But at the same second the old man apparently regrets his words, because someone else's foot hits his solar plexus, pushing him aside, and its owner yells at all, so that he would get the hell out. Who asks him to stick his nose in other people's business anyway. Yu only manages to mutter uncle, looking at the man who fell on his back, filling up some fruit counter. Immediately, from all sides, the following is heard from ordinary people, damn. Again, the scoundrels from the gang of the second dog are bullying someone. Will no one call them to order? Buyers and sellers with tense faces continue to look at the picture that appeared in front of them, continuing to whisper. Hey, the gang of the second dog is protected by the largest group of the Western District, the Hyena Gang. We, small people, cannot bring their anger in any way. At the same moment, the same scoundrel is attached to the astonished girl from behind, leaning towards her and holding a lock of dark hair in the palm of his hand. He whispers to little Yu to be a good girl and follow him. And if she is with him, the man guarantees that she will live in luxury. It's much better than suffering here, selling kebabs, isn't it? After a second, Zio breaks out of the vile grip and clenches his fists, saying that he will only do it over his own corpse. At first, the brown-haired man looks perplexed, but then the widest and puckiest smile appears on his face, and he himself says that it is no longer up to her to decide. The man stretches out his palm to her. Come here, beautiful. The brunette just squints and covers herself with her hand, pitifully shrinking in place. And literally at the same time, a sharp skewer flies out of nowhere, piercing the air like a weapon blade, and heading in a certain direction. The man manages to notice her approach only to the moment when the sharp tip is literally a centimeter from the skin of the palm, which was raised up near the brick wall. And of course, the skewer pierces someone else's upper limb, pinning it to the wall, which made the bastard literally scream at the whole market, "My hand!" Instantly grabbing it with another. Yu, struck by what has recently happened, turns back in surprise from where the skewer could have flown, which is why she collides with her older brother, who is chewing a kebab, holding the remains in his hand. Looks like he showed up just in time. The man with glasses continues to yell from the pain piercing his palm, before turning his head to the two buggies and ordering them to pull out this thing, at the same time not forgetting to call them idiots, which makes them jump instantly. One of the bodyguards tries to pull her out while the one standing next to her mumbles tensely that she's stuck pretty deep. The first one, grabbing the skewer with both hands and resting his foot on his forearm, tells the boss to be patient and assures that he will pull it out now, while the brown-haired man's whole face has shrunk and looked like dried and exhausted grapes. All that comes out of this hypocrite is just moans of pain. The people who stood and watched before, unable to object to the leader of the gang of the second dog, immediately begin to whisper again. It was Xiao Ming who threw her like that. Wasn't he a weakling? Where did such a force suddenly come from? Is it possible that, while at this time the guy himself continues to calmly chew shish kebab, without thinking about anything, the amazed girl still can't properly ask her brother what he did, while he himself throws the already bald skewers aside, saying that you may not thank him. Naturally, as her brother, he would teach a lesson to any scoundrel who dared to offend her. Xiao Jr. immediately smiles, saying that Ming will definitely not wait for gratitude from her, and then immediately rushes to him, starting to look around from all sides, squeezing his cheeks in every possible way, asking along the way, and why did he suddenly become so strong? Did he really become a warrior? After all, it was not for nothing that she worked hard here, earned money for his studies. It looks like all the troubles are behind us. Also, the girl asked to look at him, immediately wondering what, in fact, is the difference between warriors and ordinary people. The brunette awkwardly clears his throat, slightly pushing that palm away from him, asking him to moderate his ardor. And to be honest, he's not a warrior at all yet. The girl, immediately hearing the latter, instantly drooped, shrank, becoming very small, and tears glistened in her eyes. Little brother didn't become a warrior. But then their sweet conversation is interrupted by a nasty voice. Even without becoming a warrior, he dared to do such an audacity. The guy and you turn to the source of the new sound. The first one looks very dissatisfied, and the girl even looks outraged. Something is coming. The man, clutching his pierced palm, which has already been bandaged, wrinkles his lips and frowns while a murderous aura hovers around him. He calls out to the boy, saying that if he does not teach him a lesson today, then he will not know how terrible the world outside is. Yu, clearly frightened again by someone else's facial expression, grabs his brother's elbow. It's not good. She tells Min that he has not even become a master of martial arts yet, and he is not suitable for these scoundrels as opponents, because the girl literally asks him to run away as quickly as possible while the same nasty trio is standing in front of them. The scoundrel's distorted face only wrinkles more, so much so that his veins bulge out. Do they want to escape? Never in my life. He immediately orders his subordinates to grab the boy, which makes both bullies instantly turn out to be opposite each other, while a completely calm Xiao stands between them, who doesn't even seem to care, but his sister only grabs him harder, looking back at bald men. At the same second, almost close to the student of the Academy of Martial Arts, the leader of the gang of the second dog approaches, grinning in all 32 teeth and stretching out his healthy hand, in which the knife blade glitters, as if signaling danger, while the bandit begins to speak. Does the boy think he's some kind of big shot here? Or is he just waiting for him to make a couple of holes in his body in order to see for himself whether Xiao will be able to get up at all? Being in this position, the brunette only looks at the same dangerous blade before a girl jumps out in front of him and the leader of the gang of the second dog, spreading her arms in different directions. With tears in her eyes, she answers in the negative with a cry, as if begging all this to stop, before with a certain defeat she says that she will go with this Yudiak. And at the end she quietly asks him not to do anything with her brother. The man just grins, proudly lifting his nose and frowning his thin eyebrows, muttering that it's too late. But at the same second, his mood immediately changes. The bandit raises his hand up, removing the knife away from the teenagers, and with a huge smile almost to her ears, informs her that she should not worry at all, because he did not think of killing brother Yu earlier than he should. The girl, though strained by this, is silent before she sees something else. This lunatic sticks out his tongue, along which the side of the knife blade passes, and his crazy eyes peek out from behind dark glasses. And the following words sound like a sentence. He will just let Ming watch his games with her, and then, as soon as he has played enough, he will already make Xiao Jr. herself look at how he will beat her brother with his own eyes. And then the man starts laughing loudly and gaily, and at the same second, someone's fist flies into his cheekbone, causing the glasses to completely fly off the freak's face, and one tooth comes out of his mouth. With one blow, a student of the martial arts academy sends the bastard a couple of meters back, forcing him with his clumsy body to completely knock down a couple of tables and a counter, causing all kinds of products to fall from there. The buggies, who had just surrounded the teenager before, instantly change in their face. Their eyes become 5 kopecks at all, and they themselves look in surprise at the man who flew off to the side. One exclaims in surprise, "Damn it," and the second only mutters, calling the scoundrel an older brother. At the same time, Xiao Sr. appears in front of the girl, who seems to have only grown bigger while Yu is hiding behind him with tears in his eyes. His own are burning scarlet with might and main, and the sun draws a silhouette. He menacingly asks how he could even afford to molest his sister. Did the freak want to die so badly? Someone only shouts in surprise at him in response, "What?" The brunette, who has slightly recovered from the shock, immediately excitedly asks if Min did not tell her that he is not yet a warrior and a martial artist. He immediately turns to her, and the old anger as if blown away by the wind. The hero smiles gently at her, answering that not quite, but he managed to get a little closer to his goal. The guy comes up to her and puts his palm on her hair, gently stroking her head. He apologizes for forcing the unfortunate Yu to deal with all this alone. From now on, Min swears that he will protect her. The sister can only look at him before a soft smile immediately appears on the pretty face, and her eyes shine with tears at all. She happily agrees, but immediately a man gets out from under the boxes and cardboard, near which both bodyguards were already towering. How did these kids even dare to cripple his beautiful face? He grabs a huge bruise on his cheekbone, barely seeming to take a sitting position before his face is framed by a grimace of anger again. The leader of the second dog's gang puts his finger forward, pointing at the 2 teenagers, before ordering his charges to kill the boy. Those, having heard the order, instantly find themselves near the brunette, over whom they tower, so much so that the unfortunate is literally covered by their shadows. Flexing their fists, the buggies say that Min certainly got into trouble, and then, perhaps for the sake of ethics, I ask how he would like to die. The student is silent while his palms were in his pants pockets before calling them clowns with a slight smile. Immediately, the sounds of blows resound throughout the market, pushing bodies against each other, before both big men fall to the ground dead. The student of the martial arts academy just sighs wearily and shakes the dust off his jacket. Meanwhile, the leader of the gang of the second dog, who was watching this, doubly opens his mouth. His eyes for 5 kopecks can only look at the open picture. Did he just instantly kill those 2? Are they making fun of him?